All right, Steeler fans, it is Friday, and that means it's time for Behind Enemy Lines, where we go behind enemy lines to talk about the upcoming opponent. This time is a Saturday game. That sounds really weird. Steelers Colts in Indianapolis. Last time the Colts beat the Steelers was in 2008 for those keeping score at home. And with me, I bring in two people from our Horseshoe Huddle podcast, Andrew Moore. Andrew, go ahead and introduce yourself. How's it going?
Hi, it's great to be here, Jeff. It's going to be a very fun matchup between these two teams on Saturday, like you said. Since 2008, I think I was in 8th grade, maybe the
Oh,
last
gosh,
time.
don't say that. You make me feel so damn old. I mean, 2008.
Peyton
Oh,
Manning
college.
was Peyton Manning was still the quarterback. Yeah, I mean, I was 8th grade, just really taking in the full fandom of being a 13-year-old, just loving watching Peyton Manning. But a lot on the line on Sunday. It's going to be a fun time, or Saturday. It's going to be a fun time.
Gosh, 2008 when they lost, my wife was pregnant with our first child, I think. Like, this is insane. Stop talking about this 8th grade crap, but let's bring in Drake. What's up, Drake? How are you?
Oh man, I'm great, and I'm right there with Andrew. It's gonna be a game that I think is riding on pretty much playoff contention. I mean, whoever wins the game is gonna have a leg up, and the Colts I think definitely are coming off of a major loss where you lose by 20 points, but somehow still find themselves in the 7th seed. So right there with Andrew, I think it's pivotal for both these teams to win, and both teams are walking in with backup quarterbacks as well, so it should be really interesting.
Absolutely. And so the Steelers benefited greatly from the Colts losing last week to the Bengals, and it kept the Steelers in that top seven bracket spot, whatever you want to call it, outside of the fringe. And that's where you want to be at this time of year. Let's talk about the quarterback position. Both have backup quarterbacks going into this game. Mitch Trubisky, Minshew Mania, and Gardner Minshew. Minshew has been the starter, though, for the vast majority of the year. Have there been any glaring weaknesses in his game that you've noticed? I mean, Anthony Richardson is an athletic freak, and that's such a different offense when he's in the lineup compared to now. What are we seeing, Andrew? We'll start with you.
The biggest thing that I think we've noticed from Gardner Minshew this year is just he hasn't handled pressure very well. And that's not the norm for Gardner Minshew. If you look at past seasons, he typically gets the ball out quickly. The pressure doesn't really affect him. He doesn't turn the ball over too much. But it's been a lot different this year. Seems like the pressure is getting to him. He seems very skittish back there in the pocket. Sometimes at some points in the game, he starts to see ghosts, starts to feel the pressure before it's even there. And he certainly had his fair share of turnovers this year. So it's been different, but at the same time, he's been able to keep the offense afloat for much of the season. When Colts fans thought everything was all doom and gloom as soon as number 5 went down in week 5. But surprisingly, the Colts find themselves in the thick of the AFC playoff race, and I don't think many other quarterbacks would have been able to be thrown into this situation and keep the team afloat like Gardner Minshew has done. Very high level backup that the Colts have had this year.
Now, Drake, I'm going to throw it over to you. Obviously, Andrew talks about how him not dealing with pressure. This then leads me to ask a question about the offensive line and pass protection. How has that been holding up for the Colts this year? Because clearly the Steelers' MO is going to be pressure the quarterback, and we want to force him into mistakes. They take the ball away. They have a very good differential in terms of turnovers. Drake, how's the offensive line and pass protection holding up for Indy?
I think they've actually been. I think they've been fine. I think that a big issue with Gardner Minshew's pressure is that first off, it's kind of interesting. He sees it's almost like he feels ghost pressure. I mean, there's it's been documented. It's been seen that like there's times where he just feels the pocket collapsing a little sooner than what it actually is. And a great example is against the Bengals. I mean, most of the game they were rushing like 4 guys. I mean, and there wasn't a lot of pressure getting to Minshew outside of Hutchinson. So I think that along with another huge thing is Richardson can absolutely rocket the football down the field pretty much with no effort at all. And so Minshew's limitations as a downfield passer, I think Alec Pierce maybe just needed more time with Richardson, but he's not able to get the ball downfield, I think, as much or as accurately. And I just don't think he's a big high risk quarterback either. So that's affected the offense too. But like Andrew said, hey, he's played better than a lot of people expected. The team's playing better than a lot of people expected. And hey, he's still been able to right the ship at times, and they're 7-6. So you can't really ask for much more from a backup.
Now, Jonathan Taylor, obviously, is another big name guy, was in all the headlines to start the season with the holdout. Then he gets a new contract, but the thumb, it is a thumb, correct? Like he had surgery on his thumb. Is he going to be in the lineup? I know he missed practice on Tuesday. I have not looked at the injury report yet. What's the status of Jonathan Taylor coming into this weekend?
I don't think he's going to play. I mean, he's just there. He's not there quite yet. Hasn't practiced all week. The feeling within the building, it doesn't seem like he's going to go this week. And the biggest thing is, it may seem weird that a running back is held out because of a thumb injury, but when it comes down to ball security, I mean, that's crucial, and a lot of people, when you first think about that, or think about a thumb injury, that doesn't really hit you into, you're like, okay, now I get it. So the Colts want to make sure that Jonathan Taylor is 100% healthy before he returns, especially with part of the reason there was a holdout and part of the reason they had lost some trust between the two sides, Jonathan Taylor and the Colts, is because last year Jonathan Taylor felt like the Colts rushed him back too soon with that ankle injury, and it ended up becoming worse than it was originally was. So again, the Colts are just taking everything with erring on the side of caution. Want to make sure Jonathan Taylor is 100%. Want to make sure he can protect and handle the ball. And when you have Zach Moss, who has performed pretty admirably this year when Jonathan Taylor has been out, there's not really a reason to rush Taylor back. So the Colts feel very confident in Zach Moss that he can handle those running back duties because he's done so well this year as that number two and honestly the lead back for most of the 2023 season.
Yeah, and you want to keep Jonathan Taylor happy. So you don't want to rush him back again for the second straight year. Now, Drake, give me a player on the offensive side of the ball that the casual NFL fan is not going to know about, but could have an impact in this game. I mean, you bring up some of these names, even Zach Moss, Gardner Minshew. Obviously, people know those people because if you just watch highlight packages, you're going to hear them talk about them. Is there any player on the offense that you're like, you might not know who this guy is, but he might be making some plays on Saturday?
It's a guy that I've become recently a huge fan of, but always was when he got drafted, and that's Will Mallory, tight end Will Mallory. He actually had the most catches of any tight end in a single game against the Bengals, and that was a game where Minshew just couldn't find anybody, it seemed. So I think that he's emerging as an incredibly fast option. I think that he's really fitting Shane Steichen's offense well. He's got like 120 snaps, and he's second on the or second out of the Colts tight ends in catches. And I mean, Granson, I think, is number one. He has triple the snaps. So I think that you're seeing Will Mallory maybe get a little bit more factored into this offense. Don't be surprised if you see at least, I don't know about 5 catches, but you're probably going to see 3 or 4 catches again, just because I haven't really seen much else from the rest of the tight ends. So he's number 86. He's a name that I promise you, outside of Colts Nation or the people that cover the team like me and Andrew, a lot of people probably don't even know that name if I say it. So that's someone for me to watch out for.
Considering the inside linebacker issues the Steelers are having currently, they're top 3. They have 1, and he's banged up, and that's Landon Roberts with a groin injury. Bill Belichick gave a blueprint. You can attack the middle of the field, put the stress on the inside linebackers, use your running back in the flat, stress those position players, and Mallory might be a name that Steeler fans hear a little too much than they would like. That's a good name. I like that, Drake. Andrew, let's go back to you. I want to talk about the defense. The Colts are the team, and organizationally speaking, you go back to 2008, those great Colt teams with Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne. No one really talked about the defense that much, and they had a great defense with Freeney and all those tremendous Bob Sanders back in the back half. They had really good players, but it just was always about the offense. It was always about the offense. I feel like the Colts defense this year, while every defense has their weaknesses, is a pretty good unit that's not getting discussed. What are the things they do really, really well this year?
One of the things that I think has been maybe surprising, a lot of people didn't expect this out of their group, is they rush the passer pretty well. I say that coming off performance against the Cincinnati Bengals, where they failed to get much pressure on Jake Browning. But the Colts, with 4 games remaining, are only 4 sacks away from breaking the franchise record for sacks in a season. They have 42 this year, in the top 5 in the NFL. The franchise record is 46, and that's with Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis absolutely dominating opposing offensive lines. So it's been Samson Ebukam, the free agent signing from the 49ers, who has doubled his career high in sacks. He has 8. Kwity Paye starting to make that year 3 leap, 7.5 sacks. You're always going to talk about DeForest Buckner, who I think is still very underrated in terms of top defensive tackles. You talk about the guys like Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, Cam Hayward, who I think is also goes in that category of being underrated. DeForest Buckner's right there with those guys. And then Dio Dangbo, 6.5 sacks, another third-year pass rusher. So you don't have a TJ Watt who's got like 14, 15 sacks, but you have they do a really good job of rushing the passer as a unit and getting consistent pressure on the quarterback. And a lot of times they do that with just 4 guys. Gus Bradley does not like to blitz very often. Nate Ollie, defensive line coach, has done a really good job with these guys in that attacking front. So they love to get after the quarterback. And with such a young secondary that the Colts have, that's crucial to their success, because you don't want to leave those young cornerbacks out there on an island for 5 and 6 seconds. The opposing quarterback's going to pick you apart. So a big key to the success of the Colts is when they get pressure on the quarterback, usually you're looking at a good day for the defense.
I mean, if they watch the tape from Thursday Night Football with the Patriots and Steelers, you would see that Bill Belichick, I mean, he is a defensive mastermind. I can't stand the guy, but he is a really good football coach. He was rushing 3 and blitzing like 2, a safety and a corner off the edge, really confused the hell out of the Steelers. So when you say they don't blitz a lot, I'm like, well, they might want to think about that, because Mitch Trubisky was befuddled by that more than one occasion. They had free runners at the quarterback a lot, because when you basically had 2 free rushers with only the running back. You have to pick one. The other one's going to disrupt the play. So maybe they would think about mixing that up. But Drake, I want to throw it to you. What's the weakness of the defense? What's the area that they really struggle to handle opposing offenses?
So, it might be easy to go this route, but it's also true. I think that their secondary outside of Kenny Moore, the second, I still think that while they've played admirably, they came into this season as one of the weaker rooms in the NFL, and I just think that they still have a lot of room to grow. So I do think that they are an exploitable secondary, but they're also in some ways coming into their own. 7th rounder like Jalen Jones, he's essentially out there covering guys like DeAndre Hopkins, guys like Jamar Chase. I mean, he's a 7th rounder, and he's playing smothering type of coverage. So there's upside, but it's definitely the secondary. But I also have to say, recently it's been tackling. The Colts, especially against the Bengals, I even said it. Joe Mixon looked like 2020 Derrick Henry at times. Not saying the man can't run the football, but I mean, there were times where they were just whiffing tackles. So that has to change, because there's anybody in the NFL that can make you miss, a couple tackles, and they can just take it to the house, especially a guy like Deontay Johnson, or if you're missing tackles on Najee Harris, he's huge. So he's going to wear you down throughout the game. So got to shore up that tackling.
Really interesting stuff. Now, this is the part of the segment where I like to go and talk about the line and the total and get your thoughts on how the game's going to go. Look, I've had some people say, I'm not going to do a score prediction, but I'm going to tell you how I think the game's going to play out. I'm fine either way. You want to give me a number? Great. You don't? That's fine too. The current line that I have, this is via DraftKings, is the Steelers are getting 1.5 on the road in this game, with a total of a whopping 42.5, which is skyrocketing from the 30 total that was on Thursday Night Football against the New England Patriots and Steelers. But Andrew, throw it to you first. How do you see this game playing out between these 2 AFC opponents?
I think it's going to be a game of it almost seems like whoever turns the ball over the least amount's going to win. Turnovers are going to be the key, because like I said, Gardner Minshew has had his fumbling issues. He's thrown more interceptions than is normal. And I think when you get Mitch Trubisky in some situations where he feels like he's in trouble, he's prone to turn the ball over as well. So which one of these backup quarterbacks is a lesser of 2 evils, and both defenses, I feel like, are very opportunistic. If you're going to put the ball in harm's way, usually these defenses are going to take advantage. I also think it's going to be crucial health-wise to see who's back. TJ Watt to practice in full today. It looks, and this is Wednesday, so it looks like TJ Watt might be available. Who knows about Alex Highsmith? Meanwhile, the Colts starting right tackle in Braden Smith did not practice for the 2nd day in a row this week, and it doesn't look like he's going to be moving Blake Freeland, the rookie right tackle out of BYU, to the starting right tackle position. So it's going to be crucial. But I like the Steelers are getting a point and a half. I think I think the streak breaks for some. This has been a very weird season. It's got, and who knows? Leave it up to Gardner Minshew. We've had Andrew Luck over the years, couldn't get over the hump. Phillip Rivers, Anthony Richardson doesn't have that opportunity. Leave it to Gardner Minshew to break this streak and beat the Steelers. I do think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think I'm gonna hit, but I am gonna hit the over. You said line's 42. I'm gonna go Colts 24, Steelers 20. I think it's going to be a close game throughout, and again, it very well could come down to within those last 2 to 3 minutes which quarterback turns it over.
Wow, like the Steelers scoring 20 is an exciting day for us Steeler fans. Like, this is remarkable. They're averaging 15 points a game. I mean, that's saying something. Hey, by the way, right before we went live, TJ Watt was cleared by an independent neurologist. He is out of the concussion protocol, so he will be in the lineup. But Alex Highsmith is now the question mark, so we'll see about that. You brought that up. I wanted to add that in there. Drake, same question for you, man. How do you see this thing going?
Man, this is a really tough one because both teams have backup quarterbacks. I think that both teams have glaring weaknesses on offense at different areas and limitations. Now, at the end of the day, though, first off, now that TJ Watt is going to be playing, I think that I think Bernard Ryman's going to have a return to form type game. He really struggled against Chase Hutchinson.
Trey Hendrickson, my bad, last week. But I really do think at the end of the day, TJ Watt is going to disrupt things. I think that the over, I'm right there with Andrew. I do think the Colts get this, but I'm going to go even closer. I think that it's going to be 23-21, and the closing seconds are like really close to the end of the game, and it's going to be on Matt Gay's leg to win the game. And I think he's going to do it because he also, like the rest of the team, just couldn't do anything last week. Missed a field goal, missed an extra point too. So, but at the end of the day, I'm right there with Andrew also on whoever turns the ball over the least, I think is probably going to prevail. And both these quarterbacks don't exactly do well with pressure. So it'll be interesting because guys like, it's Minkah Fitzpatrick. There's Joey, is it Joey Porter? Yeah, Joey Porter Jr. And then of course TJ Watt. Guys like that, man, anything can happen if you get pressure on Gardner Minshew with playmakers like that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, we don't really talk this game up. I think it's going to be an entertaining game. I think this is a game. It's going to be on national television. I think that this will be. You have 2 7-6 teams that are really their playoff hopes and aspirations are hanging on this one. And so I think there's that added playoff atmosphere. I think Indy will be bumping that. They'll have Lucas Oil just really loud. I don't know if they're going to be pumping in music like they used to when Tony Dungy was there, but still we won't go down that road. But no, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. I want to give you a chance to plug both your social media and what you're doing with the Horseshoe Huddle. Andrew, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you can follow me on X at Andrew Moore NFL. And then, of course, if you want to hear more Colts, Drake and I every Monday and Thursday night live on the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. And then we also have, of course, courtesy of Fans First Sports Network, are on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts. We have weekly audio podcasts on there as well. So make sure you check it out. Plus our written work for Fan Nation on SI.com at horseshoehuddle.com.
Perfect. Drake, go ahead. You plug your stuff too.
Yeah, pretty much everything Andrew said. Only I'm on X at D Walster Drake, and like Andrew said, go to Colts on FN on Twitter and the Horseshoe Huddle on Fan Nation. There's a lot of stuff happening. Even though this team has a backup quarterback and a first-year head coach, boy, they've been able to squeak out some wins where they mattered, and they're right there in playoff contention. So come check our work out. There's a lot to talk about.
Check out that podcast platform, Steeler fans, whether you want to hear them boasting or maybe crying after the game on Saturday. We'll see either way. But nonetheless, check them out, gentlemen. Thank you very much for taking the time. I do appreciate it. Have a good one. Enjoy the game.